Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Pacific Horseplayers right here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Meagher. After a bit of a 1-week hiatus, last week Ryan was able to fill in for me, which I'm very grateful. And I'm very grateful that I'm joined by that same person, Mr. Ryan Anderson, as my co-host. Ryan, got a very exciting show for the viewers tonight. How we doing?
Got an absolutely great show, and it always starts off strong with Zach Diamond with that beat. Whoever chose that for the intro made the right choice because that thing goes hard. It gets me ready for the show.
That's an essential piece to the puzzle, I would say.
Absolutely. But the card this weekend's fantastic, and I'll let you introduce our guest, who's absolutely the guy you want to take us through these races.
Yes, we have a terrific guest to talk about the Turf Festival this weekend at Del Mar, of course. Before we bring him on, I'll just go through some quick admin. Of course, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Still got the regular Power Picks tip sheet going, $2.10 ROI over the last 3 years. I think it's almost been going for 4 years now, so very successful over there. Lately, we've had some very good picks, and we've had some very bad ones, as Howard can attest to. I know he doesn't necessarily want me to bring that up, but just to joke around with him. Of course, you can find that on our website, hhhracingpodcast.com, and you can find out more about us. And then the last thing, just make sure our Twitter handle changed from H Kravitz to HHH Racing Pod. So there's nothing we really have to do on that end, but just for clarification purposes. And then last thing, of course, make sure if you're not subscribed, make sure you do that, hit that button, notification bell, like button, all that good stuff. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and bring on our guest. So this is a special man to both Ryan and I, both special in our hearts, a guy that was very fortunate enough to bring us on to his little Del Mar seminar. So we wanted to return the favor. He's an author. He's a seminar host. He's a man of many gifts, but most importantly, he is a very dear friend. So let's go ahead and bring him on, Mr. Frank Scatoni. Frank, how you doing tonight?
I'm so happy to be here, guys. Thanks for that wonderful intro. You can make me tear up a little bit there, you know.
It's okay. Really cool. We got a lot of races ahead of us, so we'll keep the tears, but make sure
there'll be tears of joy after we hit a bunch of these races this weekend.
Yeah, especially because I will actually be there on Saturday, so I'm very fortunate to see Ryan for sure. Hopefully, I'll get to see you too, Frank. I'm sure we'll work things out, but we'll go ahead and get into the races because that's what everybody's here for. So I'll go ahead and take this. Go ahead and switch this over. Give me 1 second. The bit of a hiatus is causing me to not remember how to do things again. But I will go ahead and get this switched over. 1 second here. And there we go. No, that is Sunday. Excuse me.
This guy, he takes a week off, and Howard sold the Get Bucked crew back just to get you back here. And
yeah, I think he might have to do something about that. Here we go. Race 5 on Saturday is the Jimmy Durante. It's a grade 3 run for a $100,000 purse, 1 mile on the turf for the 2-year-old fillies. We got a nice big field of 13, as we'll see. We got some very solid fields in these turf races over the course of Saturday and Sunday. Morning line favorite. Morning lines are out for Saturday. Unfortunately, they are not out for Sunday, so it makes it a little bit of a trickier part on our end. But morning line favorite for this first race that we're going to be going over is the 8 Super Speed, Louisiana bred for Pratt and Mr. John Sadler. Let me get the picks on the bottom of the screen. I'm going 2-8-12. Ryan's going 12-11-6. And Frank is going 8-1-11. Frank, of course, because you are the guest, you will be going first. And you are going with the aforementioned 8-horse Super Speed. What do you like about this 2-year-old filly?
Yeah, well, first, I actually want to set a little challenge. How many stakes races is Pratt going to win this weekend? I'm going to set the line at 2.5, over or under.
I think over is a pretty good bet.
I like that line, though. I like that line. I think it's going to be 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can win 3 on day 1. Actually, I mean, he's my topic all day. So forgive me for being boring and you know just going with Pratt, but I like Super Speed. I thought she was terrific in her debut over the summer. She broke her maiden 5 furlongs on the turf. Sadler, who's usually very patient, throws her right into a stakes race. She runs a very good second to, we all remember Thought Process, a Little Red Feather horse. Won again in her next start in the Surfer Girl, and then was a little bit overmatched in the Breeders' Cup, but was certainly good enough to earn a spot there. This girl was second to her 2-back. Forget the last race. Ran against the boys on Breeders' Cup weekend, and it was just draw a line through it. Go back and read the chart comments. It's actually hysterical. Bumped, steadied, checked again, checked 16. I mean, it's the craziest trouble line I've ever seen. And then the comment says rightfully weakened. So yeah, she had to out there. But to me, the biggest push is that Pratt, he gets up for his old friend Sadler. Those guys won a lot of races together here when Pratt was based in Southern California. Sadler's not going to waste any, he's not going to waste the call with his buddy. So that tells me all I need to know. I was a little disappointed that the horse was made the morning line favorite, but it's a big full field. I still think there's some value. And I like a couple of prices underneath. So Super Speed here, number 8, is my top pick in the Rink-a-Dink-a-Doo, Jimmy Durante.
Yeah, this is quite the race to start it off. I think there's certainly some prices you could go with here. And is that what kind of you're thinking, Ryan? Just because you don't have the 8 in the mix, but the 8's certainly a horse to beat. But from your perspective, maybe trying to find that such price.
8's definitely the horse to beat, and I know I left him out of my top 3, but that doesn't mean I don't respect him. Frank, you mentioned that last run that Super Speed had, and DRF simplified it and just said brutal trip. So yeah, anytime you see just a 2-word trip comment, that's got to be rough. But my top pick in this race, I ended up going with Tigerish to the number 12. This horse worked with a workmate whose name was Watchtower, who ran a little bit ago at Santa Anita, and that horse won and upset the field there. Tigerish was supposed to run, I think, on Breeders' Cup weekend, but they decided to wait a little bit and aim for this spot. I like that last race that this horse comes in off of. The Tis the Laws, as they've kind of gone on with his 2-year-old season in his first crop, they've gotten a lot better. I like what I see from him on turf. That last effort encourages me a lot. Obviously, the run at Kentucky Downs, you can do whatever you want with that. It typically doesn't mean much to me. But came back at Santa Anita, ran a really good race. And Frank, you and I were talking about Del Mar. You brought this up to me that someone pointed out that those outside post positions win more than you'd think they would. And I've been paying attention to that this meet, and that has certainly been the case. Yeah. They've certainly been running a lot better than they have, it would appear, in the past. Frankie Dettori takes them out for Richard Baltus, who's kind of gotten hot the last 3-4 days of the meet. So I feel confident taking Tigerish here to spring, hopefully a pretty good upset, because I like that 15-1 on the morning line.
Yeah, certainly. And with the wide openness of the field, I think you should probably get it. I agree with everything you said, Ryan. I think she's definitely a contender. I think the Surfer Girl, when I watched it, I thought it was better than it looks on paper. The thought process just kind of took them around the whole way. And obviously you can tell by her running line, she needs some pace to run into, and she should probably get it today, or at least on Saturday. You have to like that Frankie hops aboard. Obviously, there's a question with maybe she's going to leave herself too much to do, and with that wide post, maybe that's she's kind of up against it to begin with. But I like the things that you mentioned, and I've got her in third. Let's go to somewhere else, because we got a lot of variety here. You guys both have the 11 in the mix. Will then for Jonathan Thomas and Vincent Chemenon, who's actually been out there a couple of days and was out there last week. Frank, what do you like about this horse coming in from Woodbine?
Yeah, it's funny that Ryan mentioned number 12 Tigerish, because that was the horse I originally had slotted for third. And then the more I thought about it, I'm trying to figure out, well, what kind of trip is this horse going to get from the outside? I don't like that took hold last time. I think there's going to be a pretty quick pace in here. Dettori's going to have to make the right decision, whatever it is. But I agree with you, Ryan. I think that horse is super sneaky and has a lot more talent than the paper showed. Again, I was going to make the 12 my third choice, but I ended up with the 11 for a couple of reasons. One, I really respect the fact that Jonathan Thomas brought out live horses here to support the Del Mar meet, and he's being rewarded. I mean, if you look at his stats, 6 starts, 3 wins, a first. Brought Chemenon out here last weekend. He was terrific, so he's comfortable riding this turf course. I also just thought that last race was just really, really good. 4 to 5 wide, led 3/16, wide on that 1 mile turf course at Woodbine, stalked the pace. I just think this horse has a move forward. But what I like the most is that Jonathan Thomas brought this horse out here for the meet. So clearly he had this race in mind, right? November 8th workout, November 16th workout, November 24th workout. Probably could have picked a couple of different spots along the way over the last four weeks. He chose this one. He chose this stakes race. So I just thought that this was a horse who could outrun the odds. Not quite sure the horse is good enough at this point in her career to win this race. But, I thought for underneath that was, a pretty good horse to consider.
Ryan, anything to add?
No, I completely agree. That was a lot of what drew me to this horse too, with the number 11 Will. Then, Frank, I like that you pointed out that Del Mar works. This horse has been here for a while. They've thought about running this horse in a spot, and it encourages me a lot that they chose the stake race to run the first time for this runner. Obviously, Jonathan Thomas brought out another runner, Rashmi, who has run twice at this meet and has entered again on Friday. So he's not afraid to run his horses out here. He clearly wanted to wait for the right spot for this horse. And the War of Wills this year, his 2-year-old crop on turf has been sensational. So I like this spot for him. This one should be a little more forwardly placed. Tigerish, you mentioned, is going to have to kind of choose. Dettori's going to have to make the right move on him. So I like Will then, who should sit a bit of a tactical trip from that draw.
Frank, you've got the one Resolve in second, who was 6-1 on the line, which I thought maybe was a touch low, but I did look at her, extensively. Just seems to be getting better with every start. Finally got the maiden breaker last time, and in this big field, she's going to save ground down on the rail.
I thought that last race was actually terrific. You don't usually win on the Del Mar turf course or even Santa Anita turf course with that kind of like wide stalking trip, with no cover, just basically running like a dirt race. Usually those horses flatten out when the real running starts. She didn't. She quickened. She came home really, really strong. I agree with you. I thought 6-1 was a little light. I mean, she was 9-1 last time against maidens, and now I think she'll be a higher price. And she's I know Sea Runner beat her 2 back, but you can make some excuses there. I really wanted to like Sea Runner because I love her brother Johannes, her half brother Johannes, who is one of my favorite horses in training. But I decided not to pick her because I don't think she's going to get the right trip in this field. But yeah, I think go back and watch that Resolve race. I thought it was terrific. And like you said, Noah, she's on the ascendancy, right? Each race has been better than the last. Looked really impressive from the 10 hole. Now goes inside with arguably the best turf jock in the colony. So that was another price I wanted to kind of sneak in the mix. This is a great race. I mean, this is super competitive. This is what the Turf Festival is all about, right? We got big full fields. We got horses coming from all over. It's bittersweet because it's the end of the meeting, so it's a little sad. But on the other hand, this is what horse players dream of, right? Big full fields and mandatory payouts on Sunday.
Yeah, no, it's a real treat that we get to see on Saturday and Sunday. I'll quickly talk about the 2 Slick who I have on top. This is just a bit of a guess. She's coming out of that same race, Frank, that Resolve ended up getting the job done. I have a hard time believing that D'Amato and Little Red Feather shipped this horse all the way just to try to break the maiden. I feel like they always had this race in mind. She was working well going into that race. She worked really well coming out of that race too. The 2 works since then have been very good. Dylan Davis hops on, who I have no problem with, who's been absolutely on fire on the East Coast. She was 5-2 that day. So my thought is the public knew that she was live. She just didn't run quite to standards, but obviously you can give her the excuse being that it was her first start in the States, and 15-1 I absolutely love. So I'm going to go in that direction. The 6 is the last horse we'll talk about, Ryan Casselou, Kimura and Bob Baffert, going 2 turns on the turf, which is not something he does very often.
No, and Frank has now been present for 2 things that I don't do. The first was picking Jose Valdivia on a turf route a few weeks ago, and now I am picking Bob Baffert in the turf route, in a stake nonetheless. But this is an exception for me. Casselou is bred all over on the dam side for turf. The dam Kidoro is all turf. The sire Caracaro only cost $6,500, and they paid $775,000 for this one. So over $100K. Or 100 times the stud fee there. So this runner's had 2 efforts on turf, both in stakes, one in the Surfer Girl, where it was second behind Thought Process. That was more or less a merry-go-round race. Takes the blinkers off after a 6 furlong try in a stakes race at Santa Anita. Comes back here where the one effort rather on the Del Mar turf course was respectable enough. Kimura's been riding hot. This post position doesn't hurt her by any means. And I don't know, this is a bit of a fuzzy for me. But if Baffert's on the lead turning for home, turf or dirties, he's always tough to pass. So I felt comfortable enough picking this horse in third off a couple good turf figures.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to talk you off it just because there's so much depth in this race. There's so many different ways you can go, as you can just kind of tell by the bottom of the screen. But we'll go ahead and move on. I'm going 2, 8, 12. Ryan's going 12, 11, 6, and Frank is going 8, 1, 11. I will switch over the screen here as we are skipping a race, and we are going to race 7, which is the Seabiscuit. This is the second race we are talking about. As I get that on the screen there. Like I said, the Seabiscuit Grade 2, obviously stakes race, running for $200,000. This is a mile and a 16th for the older boys. Morning line favorite, as I scroll down, is the 7 redistricting for Pratt and Chad Brown, who was actually over for this race last year. I'll go ahead and switch the picks over, and us three are not messing around. We're all going with the 7 redistricting. I'm going 7, 8, 10. Ryan's going 7, 6, 3. Frank 7, 3, 6. I'll go back to you, Frank. The 7 redistricting is coming off of that race last time, which was off of that long break from the previous race at Del Mar, where he did end up pulling up. Thought that was a really solid effort last time, and if he matches that, he could be tough to beat.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at this horse's 2-year-old form, that from last year, the 3-year-old form, Chad Brown thought enough of this horse to run him in 2 grade 1s. 2 quality races, 2 grade 1s. Obviously, something went wrong in the Hollywood Derby. Horses was off for a very long time. Comes back almost a year later. Runs a really, really good race in the Knickerbocker, a grade 3. Just misses. 9 furlongs. That horse will be fit. Second off the bench. Chad Brown comes out here loaded for bear. I love the slight little cutback to a mile 16th. And, like I said, Pratt. Everybody knows that he dominated this colony for years. He knows how to ride this turf course. He knows how to ride the dirt course. No one is better at positioning a horse than Pratt. He will always put his horse in the best position to win, no matter what the pace is. Fast pace, slow pace, honest pace. He's the best, in my opinion. I just think Chad Brown was like, this is the race we're going to win. Come back, tune up in the Knickerbocker, maybe a little short, get beaten by a neck, pops here. And then I thought number 3, Seal Team, had a big shot because, I was against that horse last time in the lore. He went off as the favorite, should not have been the favorite based on quality, but not based on intent. There was no way Richard Mandela was going to have this horse cranked for a restricted stakes race when we had the Turf Festival coming up. So to me, this has been the target all along, off the break, good tune up in the lore, comes back, and should be very competitive in here. And then my last pick was Meagher Mono Ramon. Oh my goodness, I had that horse last time for all the world, and he got boxed in a little, and then finally came flying late, just missed. Mark Gladys firing on all cylinders. So that's kind of how I saw the race. It's one of those situations where I don't love it, but at the same time, I think these are the 3 right horses.
Got it. Ryan, you are obviously seeing it the same way as you're very similar. Just have the 3 and the 6 flip-flopped. Anything to add on all 3 of those? First, I'll actually pose a question. What odds do you think we get on redistricting?
7 to 5.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
It feels short. Take a lot of money too. I would say like 9 to 5, 8 to 5.
Yeah.
7 to 5 does feel short. I'm adding a little bit just because it's the Pratt, the Chad Brown, the Klarovich angle, and they just take unnecessary money. I think fair odds probably 9 to 5 is definitely the right number. But Frank, to emphasize your point, it definitely feels like that last run in the Knickerbocker was just to set this horse up for here. If Chad sends a horse out to Del Mar, he typically sends them back a year after. I know Fluffy Socks has had a couple runs out here, and there's some others as well. But you have to imagine this was always the end goal. Thinks highly of this horse. So to me, this is Pratt's most likely turf winner of the Turf Festival for Saturday. So I'm a heavy lean on this one. And then, yeah, we were pretty similar. Me, Hermano, Ramon. It's possible that last time was the time, but we still are going to get a nice price. And Hector Barrios at Del Mar, enough said there, right? I mean, he rides this turf course beautifully. And Mark Glad has been on fire. And then again, the SEAL team, you hit on every point that there was to make. SEAL team last time was not the time. I wasn't on this horse either. There was always a bigger picture at play, and this is the target.
I thought the exact same with the 6 Miramano Ramon Ryan, just because that was such a big race. I didn't know if he could match it this time. Yep. But then again, right now at Del Mar, throw Mark Glad out at your own risk, because he is just firing on all cylinders right now. And obviously you get Hector aboard, so it's certainly one that will be running late. I agree with you guys on the 7. If he gets not to discredit Manny Frank or anything, but if he gives a somewhat decent ride in the Knickerbocker last time, he probably wins that race by 2.5, and pretty comfortably. I just think he's come back as a 4-year-old. He's gonna be very good and very tough to beat. So agree with everything you guys had to say. I'll talk about the 2 horses real quick that I have in 2nd and 3rd. I think Easter is very interesting. Last time in the City of Hope, I think you can kind of excuse it a little bit. You can see here with the incremental pace, there's a lot of love in the chat for Almendaris, but Easter just closed just as fast. You can see they were both 22.24 to finish up that race. And early on in that race, I'll go ahead and show the start. He breaks a little bit tardy. It wasn't like a stumble or anything, but he certainly didn't break super sharp. You can see he's kind of lagging back behind here. He just was not. It's not like he stumbled or anything, just a little lackadaisical. So kind of put himself behind the 8 ball in that regard. And I think with a better break, he could certainly put himself in the mix. Obviously, there's a question whether he's going to have too much to do in the lane, but I think there's an honest enough pace. And I think he's better going more than 8 furlongs. You see his mile races are just kind of meh. But going mile 16th, mile and 8th with an honest pace, I think is going to set up really well for him. And then the 10 Almendaris, who I had in 3rd, loves Del Mar, ran really nicely just to only get beaten by a length and a quarter last time to Johannes. And Irad hops on. That's the one where I would be a little hesitant to take at such a short price, just because you're going to get that Irad tax, and it'll depend on where the money goes with the 7 and the 10. So we'll see where that goes there. Any final thoughts between either of you about some other contenders in here?
Not for me.
Redistricting SEAL Team Exacta. Boom. Back to box. Whack it.
Love it. I'll go ahead and get that over to the next race. But in the Seabiscuit, I'm going 7, 8, 10. Ryan's going 7, 6, 3. And Frank, very similar, going 7, 3, 6. I'll go ahead and scroll down to race 9 on Saturday. It's going to be the last race that we are going to be covering on Saturday. Race 9 is the Hollywood Derby. It's a grade 1. Obviously, stakes race, $300,000 purse. Mount and 8th on the turf for the 3-year-old boys. As I scroll down, you see this field of 13, another huge field, and another really good race that we've got on our hands. Morning line favorite goes to the 4 Carson's Run, ship it in from the East Coast for Dylan Davis and Christophe Clement. I'll go ahead and get these picks switched over. I'm going 7, 2, 6. Ryan's going 4, 6, 5. And Frank going with a horse that I'm very interested in the 2 Rothschild. He's going 2, 12, 4. I'll let you talk about that horse, Frank. 15 to 1 on the line with Pratt. Don't know if you're getting anywhere near that.
It's Pratt's world. We just live in it. I think I think the California horses are just so similar in ability, but this one is way higher on the morning line. And if you look back to that August 31st race, the Carson's Run, I think, is the classiest horse in the field. There's no doubt about it. But kind of likes a little more ground, right? It likes a little farther distance. You go back to that Nashville Derby. I mean, Carson's Run did beat Rothschild, but only by a nose. So 3 to 1 on Carson's Run, 15 to 1 on Rothschild with Pratt. To me, that's a no-brainer. And like I said, I do not think there's a lot that separate the other horses here in California that have been running against each other. Stay Hot, Formidable Man, Atlas. All those horses. They're evenly matched to me, and I just think that Rothschild is so close to them in ability, but now you put Pratt on, and then you get that extra oomph. And I also just think this horse has the tactical speed to work out the perfect trip. And if you look, this is a very, very tough race. I think a lot of people are just going to gravitate to Carson's Run just because of the figures and, the class. I mean, the horse is a grade 1 winner. I'm not knocking the horse at all. He is the one to beat. But I don't know. I just think shortening up a little bit, and with that nose difference between Rothschild and Carson's Run and the price difference there'll be, I agree, probably not 15-1, but I think you'll still get 10-1, right? I mean, there's really not much to like on paper if you're just looking at the form of Rothschild. You have to kind of be a little sneaky with this horse.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with the fact that it just seems like some of these California runners are just kind of beating up on each other. And,
right.
I just want a little bit of a fresh face. I know he ran in that Twilight Derby last time, but he was just so bad that I find it hard to believe that he was really that bad. He ran that big race that you were alluding to in the Nashville Derby, and then ran a respectable race in the Oceanside over the summer here. So, with Pratt aboard, I think things are going to change, and you're going to see his true self.
Yeah, because Kimura gave him that 3-wide kiss of death trip on the turf, but you just can't win. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, that form looks so bad because he's in a good spot, and then he just finds nothing. So that's why I thought it was a little sneaky. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're good. I'll go ahead and throw it to you, Ryan, because you do have the 4 Carson's Run, who is the morning line favorite, coming in from that win in the Jockey Club Derby last time at Belmont Aqueduct. But like Frank said, maybe appreciates a little bit more ground. So it'll be interesting to see what you like about him.
Yeah, that was definitely some cause for pause. I just thought this horse is just better on raw ability and is going to be able to overcome that slight hurdle. Has the win at a mile and 3/16, has the win at a mile and a 16th. This is between there. So I think as long as Dylan Davis times up the ride, and nobody's had a hotter year, maybe aside from Flavien Prat, obviously.
Look at this, Frank.
Sorry?
Look at this from Matt. Go ahead, Ryan.
Matt Miller knows. But Dylan Davis has just been had his horses in the right place at the right time all year, it seems like, and certainly ever since the summer at Saratoga. So I trust him here to have the best horse in the best spot. Frank, I did love your point that Rothschild being, 5 times the price, morning line price of Carson's Run is definitely should not be right. And there's a lot of value to be found there. The only reason I didn't have Rothschild in my top 3 was I thought the pace held together a little pretty well in that, the Nashville Derby in that run, where the winner was Bellum Justum, but that was a pretty spectacular horse. And then obviously Carson's Run coming from pretty far out of it. Other than that, the, 3rd, 4th, 5th were pretty much all up on the pace. So I felt that held together well enough. And then, I feel like Carson's Run's going to be fine to get over the hurdle on covering a distance that he probably doesn't want much going forward, but I think he's capable of handling it.
Yeah, I want to get your take on the 6, Ryan, Formidable Man, because this was a horse that I did a lot of things with. I had him on top for a while. I had him out of the top 3 for a good chunk of time. I ended up throwing him in 3rd just because he loves Del Mar. His 2 races at Del Mar over the summer were some of the best that we had seen, especially from this 3-year-old crop in California. So I'm interested to see what you have to say about this horse for Bill Man, who is off the break, which I think is very appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. Comes in here ready to fire a fresh shot. That work on November 22nd, a minute and 1 second. That's a pretty snappy drill. It's not a bullet or anything crazy, but it's definitely a sharp work coming in here fresh. And then, you mentioned it, 3 for 3 at Del Mar. That's something you like to see. It's a horse for course type of track. Speaking about Del Mar, of course, and this horse has just gotten better this year. So I think it's I forget the word I'm looking for, but he's getting better and he loves Del Mar. So it's just, there's too much going right for this horse, Formidable Man, to leave him off my ticket.
Yeah, that's kind of why I ended up throwing him in 3rd, just because I kind of hinted there he is off the break. And even though he's faced some of these, he's beaten them before, but, it just seems like everyone's kind of had a long campaign. It's the end of their 3-year-old year. He's off that break and he's working well. So I feel like McCarthy's going to have him into this race with his best, not foot, but hoof forward. So that's why I've got him in the mix. I've got him in 3rd. Frank, you're going with a horse that I looked at for quite a while in the 12 Twirling Point. A lot of different ways you could go in here. He's kind of coming out of the same race in the sense where he didn't really run his best last time, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But it is for Jonathan Thomas and Frankie Dettori.
Yeah, I mean, look, you talked about Formidable Man. I mean, very good horse. I think Stay Hot's a very good horse. I think Cathal's a good horse. At It Lost, all those California horses are very, very decent. You go back, and if you look back on February 24th, early this year, Twirling Point beat Formidable Man, right? Yeah. So if you look at the races since then, I think this horse has run extremely well, and it has excuses for the losses. Last time, came off the bench, was probably a little short, and had some trouble. Again, that 2 wide, 3 wide stalking trip, throw it out, and had a little trouble late. Like I said, the horses that have been running against each other, to me, they're within this much of each other, and it's whoever gets the best trip or gets the pace to run into. So I thought Twirling Point offered tremendous value at 20-1. But to your point too, Noah, I mean, Formidable Man is a very, very good horse. And the other thing that I really liked about this horse is talking about, you got to go dig deep in the PPs to try and find a little advantage that maybe other people don't have. Tom Quigley and I take we take notes and we enter them into Formulator. And those notes come back when we print out our PPs. So here, back in the Eddie Logan, appropriately for Tom Quigley, on December 29th, this horse finished third, but our note was a horse to watch, was blocked on the far turn, strong finish, strong gallop out. So right away, that told me this was a quality horse. And then if you look at the races since then, the horse fires every time. So, maybe not good enough to beat a Carson's Run, who I agree with Ryan is absolutely the class of the field and the one to beat. But certainly at that price, I mean, this could be a blow-up race, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Twirling Point would certainly blow things up. I think maybe in terms of the board, he might get dismissed a little bit, is maybe what I'm thinking. But it's Dettori and Jonathan Thomas for Augustin. It's a horse that's maybe slower on figs, but you'll get the price in that regard. So I love the pick. I love the horse in second. We got the boss in the chat. He says, thanks for joining the show, Frank. Surprised to see such a smart man like Noah isn't considering the 5 King of Gosford, who I was going to throw to you, Ryan, because you do have him in the mix. You've got him in third. What did you like about this horse? It seems like the boss does like him. Says he loves visual last time. Distance could maybe be only the question mark. Is that what you were kind of thinking?
Yeah, distance, might be a bit of a question mark, but I love the way he ran that last race. It was really strong. Got a great trip from the 10 post with none other than Flavien Prat in the saddle that day. You get IRAD today, which is certainly no slouch. So you're going to have to pay a bit of a tax, which is why I didn't have this horse higher up. I know you're not going to get that 5-1 come post time just because he does take money. Even if he's on, a zebra in a horse race, he's going to take some money. So I thought King of Gosford, though, off those last 2 efforts, comes in here. He's going to stretch out to his longest distance of his career, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think he should be able to handle it. He's going to set a good trip. It's just going to come down to at the top of the stretch if he's good enough. But I think that he'll get the trip, and it's just going to be a matter of, turning for home what he's got.
Yeah, I looked at him. I thought his race last time in Let It Ride was good. I didn't think it was, spectacular. I mean, he was 3-2 and on paper should have gotten the job done.
Right.
I just don't know how good Heart-Headed and British Isles really are. So I just don't really know if he beat much that day. I know he broke from the outside, but I thought he got a pretty good trip overall. And then you get Irad hopping on. So you always have to wonder if this horse is going to take money. I mean, it's Irad and Phil D'Amato. But I think you got to take a serious look. I'll probably use him in some regard if I'm playing a pick 5 or whatnot. But he's getting better. Seems like he's getting, maybe a little bit better with every start. But certainly the distance is a big question. We'll have to see that on Saturday.
Yeah, the thing that concerns. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject, but
go for it.
I'll never knock someone who wants to take a D'Amato horse here in California. But my concern was Pratt won with this horse last time. He's the win rider, and he ends up on Rothschild, who's 15-1 and looks terrible on paper. So to me, that was like, whoa, wait a second, what's going on here? Was last time the time? Is that why that horse looks so visually impressive? And now Pratt jumps to a horse who most people won't consider at that 15-1 morning line. So that was the fuzzy for me. But I mean, come on, you don't lose anything with Irad, right? I mean, so that was it. That just made it a little tricky for me. And just back to what you were talking about, the Jonathan Thomas horse that I like to run underneath. You're absolutely right, Noah. On figures, he looks too slow compared to some of these other horses. But one thing I've learned in my 25 years is as good as the figures are, I take them with a little bit of a grain of salt on turf, because those figures, turf races are so pace dependent, right? And you have to have a firm grasp of the pace and how the horses run to determine those figures. And I think sometimes that gets lost a little bit as opposed to the dirt figures, which I think are spot on. So I don't mind taking a lower figure horse in a turf race as long as that horse shows finishing ability. So that's just a little lesson to throw out there. But you're right. On figures, that horse twirling, whatever the horse's name is, Twirling Point does look too slow.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's a great point, and that's where you find value in these turf races for sure. This is a horse that we haven't even mentioned, and if I've got on top the 7 Donegal Momentum for Javier Castellano, who's one of the many jockeys that are coming in to ride Del Mar on Saturday and Sunday, and for Tom Morley, who does not ship out to California very often, if at all. So I think of that as a positive, because this isn't something that he normally does. But he's taking the time and the effort to ship out here. In his 2 turf starts, he's really done nothing wrong. In the optional N1X, 2 back at Saratoga, sat a little bit off the lead, won nicely, beat a horse named Greenlight, who's a really nice 3-year-old for Rudy Brissett, who I think is a kind of up and comer. And then last time in the Giaponti, just kind of took the lead, took him the whole way. It wasn't anything super spectacular, and it was one of those traditional New York races where nobody, does a ton of running, but it's a little bit of a merry-go-round in a sense. I just don't really see a ton of other speed in here, and it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but over the course of the fall meet, it's just kind of seemed like the turf is it's definitely lighter in color and maybe favoring towards those horses that are a little closer to the pace. And I'm afraid if somebody doesn't go with him, he could certainly get away. Javier's not gonna hop on a horse for a trainer that doesn't ship often if he doesn't have anything. So I'm looking in the direction of the 7 Donegal Momentum. Any thoughts there, Frank? Maybe even Ryan, if you want to chime in.
I actually looked at that horse long and hard. Basically, to your point, to see Morley ship a horse out here was like, ooh, he must definitely think this horse has some ability to run in a race of this level. So I did consider that. I didn't end up picking the horse. As far as the turf course goes, it is absolutely a lot lighter, but I do think it's been playing fair. I think you can win wherever you are. Again, pace dependent. And I try to think a lot less about, I'm a big fan of track bias. Like I really try to consider it mostly on dirt, but I find that when it comes to quality and class horses, that bias kind of gets leveled out and mitigated, because good horses can win under any circumstances. But I will absolutely not talk. I was surprised that the 7 was so short on the morning line. So there must be some good chatter, some good buzz about that horse. And also, we talked about speed figs. That last speed fig was terrific, but then again, came loose on the lead with no, nary a straw in his path. So could be inflated a little bit too. But again, I'm not talking you off a horse who is on the ascendant and has shown a lot of quality and class throughout his short career.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of different ways you can go in this year's Hollywood Derby. We'll go ahead and move on to Sunday. I'm going 7-2-6. Ryan's going 4-6-5, and Frank is going with 2-12-4. Like I said, I'll switch this over to Sunday. Sunday, we're starting our 2 races with the Cecil B. DeMille. It's a grade 3. It is race 5 on the program on Sunday. Obviously, stakes race, $100,000 purse, going a mile. This is for the 2-year-old boys, similar to the race that we talked about earlier. This is a bit of a shorter field of 9, and like I mentioned earlier in the show, we do not have morning lines yet, as these entries just came out a little bit earlier today. Morning line favorite, if I had to guess, probably either the 4 Scipio or the 8 Clock Tower. But I'll go ahead and switch our picks over right now. I am going with 4-8-2, Ryan going with 9-4-5, and Frank going 6-4-3. So several different ways that we're going in this small field of 9. Frank, you're going with the 6 Nodonia, who I was a fan of, not last time, but 2 back. Finally was able to break the maiden, but Blacker just seems to like this horse quite a bit and throws him into some deep waters. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought this horse looked super sneaky today. Sorry to disappoint all the Pratt fans out there. I have Pratt's horse in second in this race, just because I do think Scipio will probably be first or second choice, like Noah said. And those two horses will probably take a decent amount of money because I don't know, this field, I'm not knocking the field, but no one's super inspiring to me. I don't see any horse that looks like is going to really wow. I think it's pretty evenly matched group. I ended up going with Snowdonia. Like you said, Dan Blacker really thinks highly of this horse. This horse was a maiden, and he threw the horse in the Del Mar Juvenile Turf as a maiden. And, the horse had to break from the 12 hole. Didn't really do anything. But then again, what do you do? It's a 47-1 from the 12 hole. Bump. Maybe he just used that to get some conditioning in the race. Because if you look next, horse pops, wins easy at almost 6-1. Granted, it was a 6 furlong turf sprint, but still, I think that was a fine, sharp race. And then right after that, boom, throws this horse in another stakes race. Horse draws the 14 hole. I mean, you can't do anything. Checked, had trouble. But what I like about this horse is that this horse tried. The horse came home in under 23 seconds. I know he was a million miles back, so he should have closed fast. But anytime I see a horse close under 23 seconds, my attention goes up. That shows me that this horse has ability. And typically these horses improve in their next starts under the right circumstances. That being said, I don't think I've ever looked at a form and saw a horse and liked a horse whose last race he went off at 102-1. I mean, that's just crazy. So maybe I get 10-1 today. I don't know, but I get Berrios. Berrios won with the horse. Like I said, I don't think these horses are too far apart. So that was my sneaky play in here. Scipio, while I like Scipio and Pratt's riding, horse is still a maiden. Horses never won a race. I mean, granted, the horses run really well in all three of the races, including 2 stakes races, and had some trouble, and Pratt sticks around. So that horse is absolutely live, but hasn't won. So to me, that says, hey, maybe you can find a little fuzzy in here, try to take a little bit of a swing, make some money. Yeah,
no, I like it. This is kind of a tough race from a kind of trip perspective with that TBA, because we talked about it with super speed. There were so many horses in that race that just kind of got washed or just got kind of cleared out from others. And there were just so many horses in that field. And there were only a few horses that really benefited from certain trips. And Scipio and the 6 Snowdonia were kind of 2 of those that kind of got wiped out. Scipio was one that was able to kind of sneak up the rail at the last moment and got up for the Superfecta.
Ran great that day.
Yeah, he did. And Snowdonia was one that had kind of taken a brunt of that too. Like you said, it had checked at one point in the race, and then, like you said, was drawn super wide, so just was up against it from that perspective. So it was kind of tough to kind of judge and take things out from that race. Brian, you've got Scipio. We actually all got Scipio in either first or second.
Yeah.
Because I was with you, this is a horse that I was a big fan of last time. When I did the Del Mar Power Picks over the summer, I tipped him out on debut, and then he broke slow and was closing late, so I knew he would love the mile. Yep. But then he had similar trouble where he steadied and then was flying late. So I was backing him again, and he was just one of those where I was just super devastated because there were so many horses in that race that had a chance to win if they had a clean trip.
Yeah, definitely. Scipio is, again, as Frank mentioned, still a maiden, but has shown a lot of ability. Yeah. The reason that I couldn't pick this horse on top was I think that this horse is just going to be left with too much to do at the top of the stretch for me. Comes from way out of it. And I don't know that there's going to be, there's a decent amount of pace. I just don't know that it's going to, shape up exactly the way it has to. But Scipio is a really talented runner who is kind of just shown the steady progression that you like to see from a 2-year-old. Obviously, they're all pretty lightly raced in here. This one comes in looking at another step forward, but has had 3 tries over the Del Mar turf course and, hasn't quite gotten there yet. Maybe today's the day, but I went elsewhere on top.
Yeah, let's go to that elsewhere. You're going with the 9 Pally Kitten. who made his way into the juvenile turf sprint with that win in the Speakeasy that kind of got scratched down to a field of 4 and was actually 14-1 that day. Got the job done then, was just kind of over his head last time in that Breeders' Cup race. Since then, he's been working tremendously. And I wonder if you've got a little Doug O'Neill intel here.
Maybe not less Doug, more Shane, but he loved Pally Kitten going in, and obviously was just overmatched in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Not to mention broke from post 12. The winner, Magnum Force, was the 4 that saved all the ground. Arizona Blaze, the 5, saved all the ground. Governor Sam Cleared saved all the ground. The beat goes on. That's how you win those turf sprints. Pally Kitten had no shot and was overmatched. So I'm just drawing a line through that. If anything, it just speaks to how they thought of the horse coming off of that win in a 4-horse field. They thought enough of that to put him into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Comes out of there in good order. Clearly, that didn't take much out of him. Vino Rosso on top, Kitten's Joy on the bottom. This horse is bred to love the 2 turns. Clearly has an affinity for the turf. Has that nice win. Again, only a 4-horse field, but beat Smash It and Dream Away. Dream Away, I believe, is the Wesley Ward horse. So, and Smash It just came back the other day to win at Zia Park, and I only know that because I bet her in the race. But Pally Kitten here gonna stretch out. Kazuchika Murrow's had a great Del Mar meet, and we're gonna get a price. And these 2-year-olds, they can improve, and you really never know what that next race is gonna provide. So I'm willing to take a price that 79 buyer 2 back encourages me enough to take this one on the stretch out.
Yeah, no, even though this was a kind of, I guess, a shorter field in what we're talking about on these 2 days, I thought this was a weird race just from dynamics, because you can't talk about the race without mentioning the 8 Clock Tower, who is for Wesley Ward. But it'll be interesting to see if he ends up going here or if he ends up going to Churchill. But even if he does go here, there's certainly could be some company on the front end. Pally Kitten with the stretch out. Horse that you have in third, Frank, the 3 Kells Angel, who went balls to the walls to get the lead last time. But don't know if he's going to do that again this time. And then you got this Sisterson horse from Ireland who's coming out of 5 furlong races. So it's going to be interesting to see what the early pace dynamics here, and some of these horses might not even run.
Yeah, I think you have to definitely, obviously reconsider the race if Clock Tower doesn't run here. That's my choices were dependent on there being a fast pace in this race, because Clock Tower will help ensure that. And then you have, as you said, a bunch of stretch out sprinters. That's why I went with Snowdonia and Scipio, mainly because those horses, they can finish, especially Scipio. I really think Scipio should win this race. Probably should have won the last 3 races. But then again, sometimes there are horses that just always seem to find trouble. That just it is what it is. But I think that if Clock Tower is in the race, the pace sets up certainly well enough for Scipio to come flying late under Pratt, and I think Snowdonia could easily hit the exacta or win at a big price. So I put my 3rd place horse in there because we were giving out 3 horses a race, but I really think it's just about those 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, what do you think they do with Kells Angel? I know,
they'll rate the horse. They absolutely. I think the only reason they went that fast is because the horse does have speed and was at the 10 hole. It's the only chance we have is to try and go clear and hope for the best and live to fight another day. But if you look at that race 2 back, the Zumba Beach, the horse came from off the pace and finished up really, really nicely, despite losing the footing, having a little, steadying a little bit. So I think this horse is versatile, and the fact that the horse is drawn inside, Espinoza could kind of just see how the pace develops. I don't think he'll be in first, but I also don't think he'll be in 7th. I think he sits a good tracking trip in maybe 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a good spot. Like I said, it's a short field, but dynamics are going to be a big factor in here. But we'll go ahead and move on to our finale for the show tonight. But I'm going 4.82. Ryan's going 9.45, and Frank's going 6.43 in this year's Cecil v. DeMille. I'll go ahead and get this switched over to our final race, which is the Matriarch. It is race 7 on Sunday's card. It's a grade 1, $300,000 purse. It's a mile, of course, on the turf for 3-year-olds and up for the older fillies and mares. I'll go ahead and get our picks on the screen here. I'm going 9-4-1. Ryan's going 9-3-11. Sorry, I'm going 9-4-11. Ryan's going 9-3-11. And Frank is going 11-6-1. Frank, you are going with the horse who I assume will probably be the morning line favorite in Gino Romantica, coming off of a very nice effort last time at Keeneland.
Yeah, I just think she's the class of the field. I don't typically like to bet mares this late in the season who've had this kind of campaign, but I don't think Chad Brown is going to ship her out here to embarrass her. I think this is her swan song. I mean, she crushed in the First Lady. That's a tough race over at Keeneland. I think he says, let's get her another grade 1, and then she go off and be a mommy somewhere. She has so much class and so much quality. Again, I really don't believe that Chad Brown will ship her out here unless he thought she was going to win this race. And on paper and on form and the way she looks and the races she's won and her body of work, I mean, she's by far the one to beat. I mean, if she shows up with her A game, she wins by 3 lengths, in my opinion. But she's going to be short. It's probably going to be 8-5, if not shorter.
Yeah, it's funny you say that with the A game, because Ryan and I were having a quick discussion before we actually came on. Ryan, would it be safe to say that if she shows her Keeneland form, she's going to be very tough to beat?
Yes, it would. And Noah, I hope for your sake you bet Gina this day.
I'm going to use her. I'm not going to let her beat me this time.
Which time did she beat you?
Last time.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frank, I absolutely agree, and that's why I picked Gino Romantica in third. She is the best horse, and if she shows up with her A game, however, her A game seems to mainly or primarily be at Keeneland when she really, really runs to her top ability. Obviously, the Breeders' Cup Mile last year, she ran really well, and she's had some other, like in the Diana, she ran the 101, but Keeneland seems to be really where she flourishes. And, I'm sorry about that. And nothing against her. But I went with prerequisite, the number 9 here. I just thought this was the one I wanted. Pratt comes in third off the bench for Chad in this spot. Obviously, they were aiming here. Kind of just worked her way up through the conditions. Second by a neck last time to Child of the Moon, who in that race was the other Chad Brown, and prerequisite in here is the other Chad Brown. So that was kind of my angle here, just because I like the work coming in. Prerequisite and tax implications work together. And then Child of the Moon and Gino Romantica work together. So, you can look into that any way you want. They all worked on the same day, right apart from each other. But Pratt kind of sticks here. So I was leaning towards that a little bit. And I just think we've seen it before where, a Chad Brown that doesn't really fit on numbers just seems to step up in that spot. And he ran 1, 2, 3, 4 in this race last year, if I remember correctly. And I see it pretty similar this year.
Yeah, I'm thinking very similar to you, Ryan. I respect Gino Romantica. I'm going to use her if I'm playing any kind of horizontals. I just want one of the Chad Brown up and comers. I want either the 4 or the 9. You talked about the 9 prerequisite, Ryan, who I've also got on top, who ran just fine last time. Child of the Moon just kind of beat her on the square and ran her down. But I just think as an overall body, I'm more willing to go with prerequisite, and the fact that Pratt does stay aboard. And then we can talk about the 4 who you do have in. Oh, you don't have. I'll quickly mention the 4 who was just the horse that beat her last time, but it's going to take another big effort from her and another step forward to try to take her down again. And then you've got the likes of Gino Romantica, and I just think from a betting perspective, Gino Romantica is, what is she? She's 5. She's almost 6 now. Yeah. She ran a 103 last time. I just, at this point,
no value there.
At this point in her career, at the prices she's going to be, do I really want to take that with the chance that she doesn't match that? I mean, if she, at this point in her career, she's going to be able to match that 103. I mean, she could definitely run a mid to high 90s and get the job done. But I just think there's some other up and comers that I think are interesting. And from that point of view, I don't want her. Would I be accurate in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I picked her on top just from a selection standpoint, but from a wagering standpoint, I mean, I think you have to take her on. Mm-hmm. She's going to be 7-5, and like you said, and like I said, these are the types of horses I typically don't like to bet. Meagher, who's had a long campaign at the end of a year, But again, I trust Chad Brown. I don't think he's going to bring her here to get embarrassed. Last race on the form, 7th by 18 lengths. I just don't think he would do that. That being said, it's funny. All day yesterday, I prerequisite is my top horse. Because I agree with you guys. I think that horse is on the ascendancy as a 4-year-old filly rising, but I don't know. I just kept coming back to it, and something about it was like, I see those seconds by a neck, second by 3/4. Like she's always either going to win by a neck or lose by a neck. You know what I mean? And like I have trouble with those kinds of horses. I was also a little concerned with the fact that Chad Brown has been running her much longer distances. Like maybe she might not be a miler. There's a big difference between running a flat mile and a mile and an eighth. The dynamics of the race are completely different. That being said, I do trust Pratt, and I do have prerequisite here. Always fires Pratt as my 4th choice in the race. But yesterday she was my first choice. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, Frank, we don't have the numbers, but is the 6 tax implications, is that who you have in second?
No, I think 6 is Moofy.
Oh, okay.
Unless
go ahead and talk about Moofy.
Yeah, I just think she's very honest. She finished 4th here, 10-1 in the Goldakova. She had a lot of trouble. She tries hard every time. She's never run a bad race at a mile. She's run 6 times. She's got 2 wins, 2 seconds. She's just honest, So I thought she had tactical speed to work out a trip. Again, we talked about Jonathan Thomas and Shimano teaming up. Shimano knows how to ride this course very, very well. He will put her in the right spot. Maybe not as good enough to beat, some of the other horses, but I think she'll offer some value, right? We don't have the odds. Gina Romantica, obviously, 7-5, something like that. What is prerequisite going to be? 3-1 or 8-1? This race is a lot to do with price and looking for value. So I just thought Moofy would probably be about 12-1 in here, and I thought she was a very good exotics horse, and even has a chance to win. I know, again, another 5-year-old mare, don't typically like it, but she's super honest, and I think Jonathan Thomas has done a really, really good job with her. She's earned more than $500,000, so she's a classy horse.
I can tell you're a big Jonathan Thomas guy.
Oh, I am. He comes out here, and it's like, plus, I know, from back east, I think got started in steeplechasing and stuff. He really knows how to train a horse and get to the bottom of one. So, and I love that he comes out and supports Del Mar Racing. He doesn't have to, but he does. And I'm glad he's having the success he's having.
Yeah, Ryan, you've got the 3 AG Bullet, who is another one where it'll be interesting to see what the price is, just because she's coming off of that huge effort last time in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, but that's not really her game. And I know she ran huge, but I don't know. She's very talented. It's just a matter of whether she's going to be ready off of that big effort.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she ran huge in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, just missing by a neck. Thankfully, she missed by a neck that day because Starlust got me home. But stretching back out to the mile, this is what she wants to do. This is where she's best. Again, there is one little caveat to this pick, and that is if Kehoe Beach, I picked thinking Kehoe Beach was going to run in Churchill because that's kind of how it looks from everything I've read. So it looks like Kehoe Beach is going to run there. If Kehoe Beach decides to run here instead, that is going to change my pick because I think AG Bullet and Kehoe are absolutely going to fly. So I would definitely throw in tax implications because a Joel Rosario on a closer on turf is something I'm going to want, especially if the horse is trained by Chad Brown. But to stick with AG Bullet, and we'll just assume that Kehoe Beach is running in Churchill, I don't know where any other pace is going to come from. And AG Bullet, we've seen her get brave on the lead more than one time, and she just opens up, and sometimes she refuses to get caught. And we talked at the beginning of the show how the turf course is playing, and it's playing pretty fair. But to that point, if a horse gets loose at Del Mar, sometimes they just keep going, regardless of any kind of bias. And AG Bullet has done that more than once.
Yeah, no, she certainly has, and she likes here at Del Mar. She's got a win in a third, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see, especially with Kehoe Beach in the race. Which, like you said, Ryan, from what I've heard, I don't think she is going to be in the race. So AG Bullet could have things her own way. We'll wrap it up with you, Frank. You've got the last horse that we'll talk about, the one Sacred Wish, who was in the Goldacova, which is one of those undercard stakes over Breeders' Cup weekend, and ran perfectly fine as a favorite.
Yeah, I mean, to me, she's been very unlucky. She shows up every time. I know she lost as the favorite last time, but second off the bench here, gets that rail trip where Velasquez could just kind of suck back, track the pace a little bit. If AG Bullet and Kehoe Beach or whatever the horse's name is, they get a ding dong. Even if not, AG Bullet's going to go out and set a pretty quick pace. Someone in here is not going to let that horse get away. While Ryan said, if you get loose, you could win wire to wire at a mile, but it's very, very hard to do at Del Mar in a stakes race because there's so many good horses and so many horses who can finish, especially if they're trained by Chad Brown. So I don't think this horse is good enough to win, and I won't bet this horse to win, but I will certainly use this horse underneath in some kind of exotic scenario, just because we'll probably be, was favored last time, we'll probably be around 12-1 this time. And I just think she shows up and, maybe gets third or fourth. But I went back to what Ryan was saying about tax implications in Rosario. Before Pratt, Rosario was Pratt. Rosario was the one who was winning all the races and dominating the colony. And he went back east to, fit in with the tougher jockeys and prove his worth. Pratt took over the reins. Now Pratt's gone. Right now we have Juan Hernandez, who's the Pratt. We'll see if he ends up leaving to go back east too. But the fact that Rosario's out here and riding a horse for Chad Brown, I think that means a lot. So there's a lot of ways you can go here. I thought this was so tough. I love the Matriarch. It's one of my favorite races of the year. Grade 1 for fillies and mares. It's such a classy race. And these are really good, honest horses. And, it's kind of a throw a dart race. And I think for me, my decisions are going to be based on the tote board because you will definitely find some value on some real quality fillies and mares in here.
Yeah, it certainly could be Gina, or it could certainly be a lot of different others. It seems like the vibe from that race. We'll go ahead and move on to best bets. But in the Matriarch, I'm going 9-4-11. Ryan's going 9-3-11, and Frank is going 11-6-1. Moving on to best bets. When we asked Frank to give him a best bet, we have 5 races covered over the course of Saturday and Sunday. But Frank said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give a horse Sunday race 8, a dirt race. He's playing a win bet and doubles with the 2 For All Mankind. Frank, floor is yours.
Yeah, it just, I don't want to ignore the dirt racing. Come on, there's still some good race. This is an upper level allowance race, and I just thought number 2 For All Mankind looks like the winner here. Again, Pratt. Oh my God, if we see Pratt's picture in the winner's circle over the next all weekend, I'm going to have a very, very good weekend. I just think this horse is sitting on a big race. I think Fort Bragg, the Baffert horse, will probably be overbet. And my thinking in this race is that if Fort Bragg was doing well, he'd be running in a stakes race, and here he is in an allowance race. So I just thought there'd be a little bit of value in a short field for number 2 For All Mankind. Routed last time, showed speed, is now cutting back to sprinting, which is what the horse wants to do. The horse has a very, very sharp win here over Del Mar, wire to wire back on August 10th. Horse is fast early. If Moose Mitchell goes guns blazing, Pratt can just sit right off Moose Mitchell. If not, Pratt can go make the lead. And how many times do you see when you get a quality jockey like Pratt they're usually not on the front end, but when they are on the front end, watch out. So that was kind of my little sneaky thing. I'll look for doubles going into For All Mankind. I'll do a win bet if For All Mankind is 3-1 or higher. And then again, I'll look for doubles going forward. But, again, the tote board will decide a lot. But I just thought that horse was a little bit of a sneaky value, considering the fact that Fort Bragg is probably going to take money, and Manitowish, who is in very good form, will probably take some money as well.
Yeah, no, I love it. This game is as much betting as it is handicapping, and
that's right.
And when you're right, you want to make sure that you're right and are well compensated. So I think you've got it. You got it covered there. Ryan, I'll go to you next. You got a win bet on the 4 Carson's Run in the Hollywood Derby, and then a try box 4, 7, 9, 11, which I believe are all the Chad Brown horses in the Matriarch.
Yes, they are. He ran 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll start with the trifecta box. He ran 1, 2, 3, 4 last year with his 4 entries. So I'm going to go ahead and say he'll run 1, 2, 3 here at least. The one I'm not sure of is Child of the Moon, but it's always the one you're not sure of that ends up getting in there. So I'm going to use all 4. I think it'll pay because I don't think Gino Romantic is going to be the one to win on top. I think one of the other ones might get a better setup, especially if Kehoe Beach draws in. It's going to add a lot more pace into that race. So yeah, I'll box those, and I feel pretty confident with that. And obviously 4 horses for trifecta. That is what it is, but I love that one. And then Carson's Run. I've really become a fan of that horse. That horse has really progressed the way you want to see a horse come along in his 3-year-old season. So I'm going to take that one. Again, 1 1/8 miles might be a bit of a question, but the horse should be able to get over that hurdle, and I think that horse is just better than the others in the field.
Got it. I like the idea there. Going with an interesting bet there, especially in the Matriarch. I'll show mine. I'm going with I'll play some exactas and tries with the 8 Easter and the Seabiscuit, just because I think he's going to get some pace to run into, and he's going to appreciate going a little bit longer this time around. So hopefully I can get him somewhere in the mix. Probably with the who's the 7 in that race, redistricting. Probably play some 7, 8, and then 7 with a bunch with 8. Maybe throw the 10 Almendares in there. Try to get him underneath, which I think he should probably be about between 7 and 10 to 1. That would be my guess. And then moving forward with the Hollywood Derby, placing a win bet, same race as you, Ryan, but on the 7 Donegal Momentum. I'm just worried that he could maybe get a little loose on the lead, just because there's not a ton of speed in there, and I think there's some intent with Morley shipping over from the East Coast to Del Mar. So I'm going to go with that horse in the Hollywood Derby. But before we wrap things up, final thoughts from both of you. Frank, it's been an honor to have you on the show. You've given some great insight, of course, and I'll leave the floor to you to finish this off.
I want to thank you guys. I was telling Ryan, and I've been writing about it and talking about it on my shows. It's reinvigorating, the energy and the smarts, and this young crowd just gives us old timers a little bit of a little bit of energy, a little bit of pep in our step. Because as you know, horse players, we can be very cynical, we can be very very grumpy, lose a lot of photos, get disqualified, get a bad ride. We can make excuses for everything. So it's just a lot of fun talking to the younger generation and how you guys look at the game and view it. And just the fact that you're out there, you're out there spreading the word, and, you're on social media, you have your YouTube channels. To me, that's the grassroots way to grow the game. And I want to thank you guys. You've done my shows and you've knocked it out of the park, and I was really happy to be here.
Yeah, no, we're certainly glad to have you, Ryan. Any final thoughts before we send the crowd?
Yeah,
off?
All credit to you, Frank. You are a big proponent for getting the younger guys into the game. You and Howard,
Yes,
both,
Howard.
both huge on that. Speaking of, I hear you have another buddy of ours on your show on Sunday.
That's
for
right.
Scatoni's final best bet of the Del Mar season.
Yeah, well, I had Tyler Hoffman on last week, and we were talking about the BC diaries that he was doing for In the Money, about trying to qualify. And we talked about Jackson Muniz, and he did my on-track seminar, and figured I'd have him on for closing weekend best bet, try and get us out. Tyler Hoffman got me out on last Sunday with a really nice exacta. So we'll see. For those who don't know, 11 a.m. on Del Mar's YouTube channel or on their Twitter channel, I host a seminar called Best Bet. A guest picks a couple of races, analyzes them, and then puts forward a wagering strategy. We talk a lot about a lot of stuff. There's some basic stuff, but it's mostly intermediate to high level. So if you're looking to level up your game, please watch. It's always fun for me. And, like I said, I just enjoy having you guys and hearing your thoughts, and it allows me to get out of the lane, challenge myself a little bit, try to think outside the box, because you guys are coming forward with really sharp and interesting opinions. So thank you.
Yeah, no,
absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
I know I speak for Noah and Jackson. We all look forward to seeing you out at Del Mar this weekend. We'll all be in the same place for
we'll be hanging.
Last run. We'll be hanging.
I'm certainly looking forward to it. Just because I didn't get to talk to you much, Frank,
Yeah,
on
that's right.
our Breeders' Cup weekend. You were doing a lot of things, so
Dialed in.
it'd be good to see you.
And I was on one leg, so I'm a lot better now. So.
That too. You had many obstacles to overcome. That's for sure.
All right. Well, yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys at the corner on Saturday for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely looking forward to it. That's going to wrap it up for us. For my wonderful co-host, Mr. Ryan Anderson, and our special guest, Frank Scatoni, I've been your host, Noah Maher. This has been episode 7 of Pacific Horseplayers, covering the Turf Festival at Del Mar this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Make sure you check us out next week. And until then, PHP out.